Imagine this for a moment. You sit at the dinner table with the people you trust the most, your family, the ones you believe would never harm you. But what if I told you that sometimes the greatest threat to your peace, your spirit, and your destiny doesn't come from outside strangers? It comes from someone sitting right beside you. That's right. Witches don't always come with pointy hats, black robes, or broomsticks. They hide in plain sight, smiling at you, cooking for you, hugging you, while secretly working against you. And unless you sharpen your eyes and your spirit, you won't even notice the danger until it's too late. A witch in your family is not always the person casting spells with candles and potions. Sometimes it's the relative who constantly belittles your dreams, discourages your growth, and drains your energy every time you share your vision. They may not call it witchcraft, but the effect is the same. Darkness hiding behind a smile. You see, true witchcraft is the manipulation of your spirit. It's someone who prays against you instead of for you. Someone who uses your trust to get close enough to sabotage you. Pay attention to the patterns. Who is always jealous when good things happen in your life? Who gets uncomfortable when you shine? That relative who laughs when you fail, who reminds you constantly of your mistakes, who gossips behind your back but pretends to love you in front of others. Don't dismiss that as just their nature. That's how witches hide in families. They wrap their envy in tradition, their curses in concern, their hatred in hospitality. They are strategic because they know your weak spots, they know your secrets, they know exactly how to strike without leaving visible scars. And here's the part most people miss. Witches don't just operate in the physical, they work in the spiritual. That cousin who offers you food when something feels off, that aunt who insists on giving you gifts you never asked for, that family member who becomes overly curious about your plans and then suddenly everything collapses afterward. Those aren't coincidences. That's intentional. Witches mark you through touch, through words, through objects, through food, and they can only succeed if you stay blind, if you accept everything with a naive heart. The way you identify them is not by their face, but by their fruit. What happens to you after interacting with them? Do you feel drained? Do you suddenly lose motivation, lose opportunities, or fall into strange conflicts after opening up to them? A real supporter leaves you stronger. A hidden witch leaves you weaker. Watch the effect, not the appearance. You must also learn to test the spirit. Notice who never celebrates your victories, who avoids praying with you, who gets irritated when you speak about God or faith. Darkness hates light. Witches in families are exposed when the presence of truth enters the room. The more you align with light, the more their mask begins to slip. But here's the key: never let fear rule you. Identifying a witch is not about paranoia, it's about power. It's about reclaiming authority over your life and spirit. It's about being awake enough to see that not every smile is sincere, not every hug is genuine, and not every family member is truly for you. You owe it to yourself to protect your purpose, because witches don't attack what is worthless, they attack what is valuable. Think about this carefully. Jealousy has a very distinct energy, and when it comes from someone outside, you can dismiss it, you can brush it off. But when it comes from someone inside your own family, someone you should be able to trust, it cuts deeper. A witch hiding in your family knows how to camouflage that jealousy. They don't come out and say, "I don't want you to succeed." Instead, they mask it with a smile, with a laugh, with a hug that doesn't carry warmth. They'll tell you, "I'm so happy for you." But the moment you turn your back, their heart is boiling with resentment. And that is far more dangerous than an enemy outside your home, because this one knows how to play the part of love while secretly despising your progress. You'll notice it in subtle ways. You share good news, and instead of genuine joy, they give you a lukewarm response. They quickly change the subject, or they remind you of what could go wrong. They might even throw in a passive-aggressive comment, something small enough that you almost question yourself for noticing it, but strong enough that you feel it in your gut. That is not love, that is jealousy wrapped in fake support, and if you're not paying attention, you'll confuse it with tough love or family concern, when in truth it's spiritual sabotage. Here's what's important. Real love celebrates without envy. Real love sees you rising and says, "Go higher." But a witch in disguise cannot stomach your light. They thrive in the shadows, and when you shine, you expose their darkness. So instead of cheering, they silently compete. They compare, they minimize, they wait for the day you stumble, because your success feels like a threat to their existence. And when you fail, they show a little too much satisfaction. You've seen that before, the smile that's a little too quick when things don't work out for you, the sudden burst of energy they get when you're struggling. That's jealousy unmasked. The danger isn't just that they feel this way, it's that they act on it. Words carry power, thoughts carry power, and when jealousy lingers in a family member's heart, it turns into curses spoken in whispers, prayers made against you instead of for you, and actions designed to keep you small, and because you love them, you give them access, you share your victories, and you don't realize you're feeding someone who is secretly hoping you fail. So you must train your eyes to see beyond the surface. Watch closely. When you win, who claps the loudest? Who struggles to clap at all? The answer to that question tells you who is truly for you, and who is wearing the mask of love while hiding the spirit of jealousy. And then there's the kind of witch you don't see with your eyes, but you feel with your spirit. You sit with them, you talk to them, you share your heart, and when the conversation is over, you walk away feeling smaller, weaker, drained. Pay attention to that, because energy doesn't lie. A true supporter leaves you feeling stronger, more alive, more capable. A hidden witch leaves you questioning yourself, doubting your path, carrying a heaviness that wasn't there before. That is not coincidence, it's the transference of their darkness onto you. You've experienced this before without even realizing it. You were excited about something, maybe a dream, a relationship, an opportunity, and you told that family member, expecting support. But by the time they finished speaking, your excitement was gone. You felt confused, uncertain, almost like they stole the fire out of your chest. That's what witches do. They don't always use spells and rituals. Sometimes their greatest weapon is the manipulation of your emotions. They weaken your spirit not by lifting a hand, but by poisoning your thoughts. And here's the subtle trick. They disguise it as advice. They'll say, "I'm just trying to protect you," or "I don't want you to get hurt." But you notice that after every conversation you're not more prepared, you're more fearful. They call it love, but it's actually suppression. It's their way of keeping you from stepping into the fullness of who you are. Because as long as you stay drained, as long as you stay doubtful, you're no threat to them. That's how you identify them. Don't just listen to their words, measure the effect, ask yourself, how do I feel after spending time with this person? If you feel inspired, they're for you. If you feel diminished, they're against you. It's that simple. Your spirit will always know the difference if you dare to trust it. And once you start noticing, you'll see that not everyone in your family has been cheering for you. Some have been feeding off you, stealing your energy, and leaving you empty. And here is where it becomes even more insidious, because not all attacks come through words or attitudes. Sometimes they come through what you touch, what you consume, and what you accept. A witch hiding in your family often knows they cannot confront you directly, so they use gifts, objects, and food as conduits. They hand you something with a smile, a token that seems thoughtful, a meal that seems generous, but hidden within that offering is a spiritual transaction. You think you're just receiving kindness, but what you're actually receiving is a doorway for darkness to enter your life. Think about it. Why is that one relative always insisting you take what they give, even when you politely decline? Why do they push it on you as if refusing would offend them? It's not about generosity, it's about access. They want something of theirs in your space, something you will carry, wear, or ingest, and when you do, you unknowingly accept the weight of their intentions. Because intention is energy, and energy clings. That necklace, that blessed charm, that special dish they say is just for you, it may not just be a token of love. It could be a weapon disguised as a gift. Now, not every gesture is sinister, but discernment is key. You have to ask yourself, what happens when I accept from this person? Do strange arguments arise in your home afterward? Do you suddenly feel unrest in your sleep, nightmares you can't explain, heaviness in your chest? Do opportunities collapse soon after you ate from their hand? These are not coincidences, these are markers, because witches don't always strike with confrontation, they strike through infiltration. Food especially carries significance. In every culture, food is spiritual. You pray over it, you bless it, because what you consume becomes part of you. So when someone with dark intentions prepares it, they are not just feeding your body, they are feeding your spirit with corruption. That's why you must be vigilant. It's not about paranoia, it's about wisdom. The enemy rarely comes roaring at the front door. They slip in quietly through what seems harmless. So when you see a pattern, when the same person keeps pressing objects into your hand, keeps preparing meals you didn't request, keeps finding ways to embed themselves into your physical space, you must ask, why are they so insistent? Because a witch in your family knows the power of gateways. And they know the easiest way to reach your spirit is not always through force, but through what you willingly accept. And notice this too, when something good happens in your life, when you finally catch a breakthrough, when the blessing you prayed for finally arrives, watch who claps and who goes silent. Because a witch in your family will never celebrate your victories. They'll sit there with a polite smile, but their body language betrays them. Their congratulations sound hollow, their words are forced, and within seconds they're already changing the subject. Or worse, they minimize it. You get a promotion, and they say, well, it's not that big of a deal. You find love, and they say, let's see how long that lasts. You achieve a goal, and instead of joy, they remind you of the struggle it took to get there, as if to poison your moment of happiness. That is not love, that is envy in disguise, because real love amplifies your victory. Real love throws confetti in your direction. Real love doesn't feel threatened by your shine, it feels proud to stand beside it. But when someone is hiding witchcraft in their heart, your success is like salt in their wound. It exposes their own stagnation, their own bitterness, and instead of working on themselves, they turn that bitterness against you. You'll know them by how uncomfortable they become when you speak of your blessings. Notice how their face tightens, how their tone shifts, how quickly they dismiss the conversation. They may even redirect attention back to themselves because they cannot stand to see the spotlight on you. And that's not just insecurity, it's spiritual opposition, because someone who refuses to celebrate you is someone who secretly hopes you'll fail. And when they hope it long enough, when they speak it often enough, it becomes a curse against your progress. This is why you must protect your victories. Not everyone deserves to hear your good news. Not everyone should be trusted with your celebrations. Because some family members don't come to clap for you, they come to contaminate the atmosphere around you. And if you're not vigilant, you'll find your joy stolen right after it arrives. The lesson is simple but hard to swallow. When you rise, not everyone around you rises with you. Some get quieter, some get colder, and that silence, that chill, that absence of support, that's how you expose the witch hiding in plain sight. And here's another way you'll know them: through their tongues. A witch in your family doesn't always attack you with their hands. They attack you with their words. They gossip, they twist your stories, they plant seeds of doubt in the ears of others. And because they wear the mask of family, people believe them. They'll say, "I'm just concerned about her," or "I only want what's best for him," when in reality, they are tearing you down with every conversation they have behind your back. Watch closely who repeats your private struggles to others, who spreads versions of your life you never gave permission to share. That is not harmless chatter, that's weaponized speech, because gossip is a form of witchcraft. It manipulates perception, it shapes how others see you, and once your name is poisoned in the mouths of many, your reputation suffers without you even being in the room. That's strategic, that's intentional, and that's exactly how witches operate. They control the narrative, so you look like the problem while they look like the victim. And the danger is, they'll often do it under the disguise of care. They'll say things like, "I'm worried about her choices," or "I hope he doesn't make a mistake." But listen closely. It's not concern, it's a curse. Because true concern confronts you directly, it doesn't slander you secretly. True love corrects in private. It doesn't expose in public. So when someone in your family keeps running their mouth about you, understand they're not protecting you. They're projecting their venom onto you. And here's the part you must never forget. Words create atmospheres. What they speak lingers. If they constantly speak negativity over your name, it builds a spiritual environment that works against you. And sometimes you wonder, why does it feel like doors are closing for me? Why do people suddenly turn cold toward me? It's because someone has been whispering against you long before you ever walked into that room. That's why discernment is so critical. Pay attention not only to what people say to you, but also to what returns to you from others. If you hear your private business being repeated, if you sense your story twisted into something ugly, know this: you are dealing with a witch in disguise. They don't need a broomstick to curse you. Their tongue is the weapon. And once you recognize that, you'll stop letting every family member have free access to your secrets. You ever wonder why some people in your family seem a little too curious about every detail of your life? They don't just ask how you're doing, they probe. They want to know who you're talking to, where you're going, what you're planning, what opportunities are on the table for you. And on the surface, it feels like concern. It feels like care. You think, well, they're family, they're just interested in my life. But let me tell you something, curiosity is not always innocent. Sometimes it's a tactic, sometimes it's the very way a witch in your family operates. They're not asking to celebrate you, they're asking to monitor you. They want information not to protect you, but to sabotage you. Think about it. You share a plan with them, excited and hopeful, and suddenly it collapses. The opportunity vanishes, the deal falls through, the relationship you were building faces tension out of nowhere. And you tell yourself it was coincidence, bad luck, timing, but what if it wasn't? What if it was because you exposed your seed too early and they spoke against it before it ever had the chance to grow? Witches know the power of words, and they know the power of intention. If they can get the blueprint of your vision, they can start tearing it down before you even lay the foundation. That's why some of you keep facing the same pattern. The moment you tell certain relatives your next move, something strange happens. delays, confusion, resistance, and you keep scratching your head wondering, why does this keep happening to me? It's not just happening, it's being engineered. Because when you give information to the wrong person, you hand them the very weapon they'll use to fight you. They don't need to stop you with their hands, they stop you with their knowledge of your steps. You must learn the discipline of silence. Not everything you plan should be spoken. Not every dream deserves an audience, especially not an audience of jealous eyes and bitter hearts. A witch in the family thrives on intel. They need to know your movements so they can interfere, so they can pray against it, so they can speak negativity over it. That's why you'll notice they push you for details. You'll say, I have something coming up, and they'll say, what is it? Tell me more. You'll try to hold back, but they press harder, acting offended if you don't share. That pressure is not love. That pressure is control. They know that as long as they know your plans, they have a foothold in your future. And let me tell you something, it's okay to be private. It's okay to say nothing until your vision manifests. Don't let guilt trick you into oversharing. Don't let manipulation make you feel like you're keeping secrets. Protecting your future is not secrecy, it's wisdom. Witches cannot curse what they cannot see. They cannot fight what they cannot identify. The less access they have to your plans, the less power they have over your outcome. Now think back on your life. How many times did you open your mouth too soon? You told that aunt about the person you were dating, and within weeks the relationship fell apart. You told that cousin about your new business, and suddenly everything you touched in that business turned sour. You told a sibling about the promotion you were chasing, and mysteriously the opportunity slipped through your hands. And maybe you thought, I jinxed it. But no, what you really did was expose it to the wrong spirit. Because not every relative is rooting for you. Some are rooting against you, quietly, invisibly, strategically. This is why you have to study patterns, who always asks questions but never shares their own life, who seems overly invested in your future but never contributes to it, who wants to know every detail yet gives nothing in return. That's not balance, that's surveillance. That's how a witch operates. They extract from you, but reveal nothing of themselves. They keep their movements hidden, while making sure they know all of yours. And you must train yourself to see that for what it is, and here's where it gets deeper. Sometimes the witch in your family isn't even aware of the spirit they're operating under. They think they're just being nosy, just being controlling, but in reality, they're being used as vessels to speak against your future. That's why discernment is key, because not everyone who destroys you does it with full awareness. Some do it because they've opened themselves to envy, bitterness, resentment, and those energies demand an outlet. Your plans become the target of their inner darkness. So how do you protect yourself? You guard your tongue. You measure your words. You learn that silence is sometimes more powerful than explanation. When they press you for details, you smile. You give vague answers, you redirect. You don't owe anyone an inside look into your process, because your destiny is not a group project. It doesn't require validation from every family member. Some of the most powerful moves you'll ever make will be made in silence. And by the time they see it, it'll be too late for them to stop it. But you must also strengthen your spirit. Because even when you stay quiet, they'll sense something shifting in your life. A witch can smell change. They'll sense your energy rising, your confidence growing, your opportunities expanding, even if you don't say a word. And when they sense it, they'll press harder for information. That's when you stand firm. That's when you remind yourself, what I'm carrying is sacred. Not everyone deserves access. Because when you treat your destiny like treasure, you stop casting your pearls before those who only want to trample them. And let's be honest, it's not easy. Silence is hard when you're excited. It's hard when you finally get that breakthrough and all you want to do is shout it from the rooftops. But discipline is protection. You can celebrate loudly once it's secure. Until then, you guard it like a seed in the soil. Because the soil protects what the eyes cannot see. And in that hidden place, your vision has the chance to take root and grow strong enough to withstand the storms that will inevitably come. So, the next time you feel the urge to share, pause, ask yourself, will this empower me or will this expose me? Does this person want to see me rise or do they just want to monitor my steps? Because once you can answer that honestly, you'll stop handing out blueprints of your future to people who secretly hope you never build it. A witch in your family leaves off access. Cut off the access, and you cut off their power. And here's what makes it even more dangerous: witches in families don't always use anger or direct conflict to control you. Many of them are far more subtle. They use emotions, they guilt trip you, they manipulate you with words that sound like love but feel like chains. They remind you of family loyalty, of obligations, of how much they've done for you. Not because they want a relationship built on respect, but because they want to keep you tethered. A witch knows that if they can't stop your destiny with envy or gossip, they can slow it down by keeping you emotionally entangled. Think about the patterns. That one family member who always says, "If you really loved us, you'd do this," or "Don't forget who helped you when you had nothing." It sounds reasonable, but look deeper. Every time you try to move forward, they pull you back with guilt. Every time you try to set boundaries, they make you feel selfish, as if protecting your peace is a crime. That's not love, that's control. And control wrapped in love is the most dangerous form of witchcraft because it makes you question your own instincts. You'll notice they play the victim often. They cry when you try to stand your ground. They exaggerate your distance as betrayal. They spin stories about you changing or forgetting your family. But the truth is, what they really fear is losing access to you because your growth threatens their hold. They know that if you fully step into your power, you won't need their approval anymore. You won't depend on their opinions, and you won't bend under their pressure. So they manipulate your emotions to keep you bound, to make sure you always feel guilty enough to return, even when returning drains your soul. This is where you need strength, not the kind that fights with fists, but the kind that stands firm inside. You have to be willing to disappoint people who thrive on your weakness. You have to be willing to hear them call you cold, selfish, or ungrateful. Because that's what happens when you stop being controlled. A witch in the family survives off your submission. The moment you break free, they lose their grip. And remember this, real love doesn't manipulate. Real love supports even when it doesn't understand. Real love gives you space to grow, to change, to evolve. If someone is constantly using guilt, shame, or emotional blackmail to keep you small, then you're not dealing with love at all. You're dealing with bondage. And bondage has no place in your destiny. So when you recognize it, you must decide, will I keep letting them pull my strings, or will I cut the strings once and for all? Because the longer you allow emotional manipulation, the more it eats at your strength, the more it convinces you that you can't survive without their approval. And nothing could be further from the truth. You don't need manipulation disguised as loyalty. You need freedom disguised as courage. And that courage comes the moment you stop falling for guilt and start standing for yourself. And here's something else you need to understand: darkness can't stand light. A witch in your family may be able to fake smiles, fake support, even fake love, but the moment light enters the room, their disguise begins to crack. Watch what happens when you pray out loud. Watch what happens when you bring faith into the conversation. Their energy shifts. They get restless, irritated, dismissive. They roll their eyes, they sigh, they change the subject, or they suddenly have to leave. Why? Because truth exposes what's hidden, and the presence of light makes it impossible for darkness to stay comfortable. Think about it. If someone truly loves you, they won't mind standing in agreement with you in prayer. They won't get uneasy when you speak about God, purpose, or faith, but a witch can't align with light because it weakens their hold. Their strength depends on secrecy, deception, and silence. The moment you start speaking words of life, declaring truth, and inviting divine presence, you're pushing back against the very spirit they operate under. And they can't handle it. This is why so many hidden witches in families avoid prayer circles, avoid conversations about spiritual growth, avoid anything that elevates you. They'll say you're too intense, or you're taking this faith thing too seriously. But in reality, it's not about you being too serious, it's about them being too exposed. Because the more you lean into the light, the harder it becomes for them to stay in disguise. Their mask slips. Their discomfort grows. Their reactions reveal them. And that's your test. You don't have to accuse them. You don't have to call them out. All you need to do is bring the light. Start praying more openly. Start speaking truth more boldly. Start walking in faith more consistently. And then simply observe. Who drifts away, who gets irritated, who suddenly creates distance, those are the ones you need to pay attention to. Because real family celebrates your growth, they don't resist it. Real love strengthens you in faith, it doesn't mock you for it. So if you ever feel tension rise when you bring up God, when you share your convictions, when you try to stand on truth, don't ignore it. That tension is not accidental, it's a spiritual reaction. And that's how you begin to see through the mask. Witches can mimic many things, kindness, generosity, even support, but they cannot fake alignment with light. The presence of truth will always expose them, and here's one of the clearest signs. You'll notice that chaos seems to follow them. A witch in your family thrives on division and confusion, because as long as everyone is fighting each other, no one is watching them. Pay attention to the one who stirs arguments, who spreads little comments that pit brother against sister, cousin against cousin, parent against child. They sit back and watch while the family tears itself apart, because the more fractured you are, the stronger their influence becomes. It doesn't always look obvious. Sometimes it starts small. They repeat what one person said about another, adding just enough exaggeration to ignite anger. They play both sides, smiling with one relative while secretly whispering against them to another. And before long, the whole family is at war, but they remain untouched, hidden in the shadows, the quiet spark that set the fire. That's how witches operate. They create division so no one unites against them. Think about the pattern. Every holiday gathering, every family event, who's always in the middle of the drama, who's always at the root of the latest fight, yet somehow always looks innocent. That's not coincidence, that's strategy, because unity is power. A united family becomes a fortress, a shield. But a divided family, that's easy prey, and a witch knows this. So they thrive by planting seeds of mistrust, of gossip, of resentment, and then watching those seeds grow into full-blown hostility. But confusion isn't just about relationships, it's also about your personal path. You share your dreams with them, and somehow you walk away confused. You were clear before, but now you're second, guessing. You were confident, but now you're doubting. That's intentional. They speak just enough negativity to scramble your vision, just enough contradiction to shake your confidence. And you think you're overthinking, but no, you're under attack. Because the enemy knows that if he can't stop you physically, he can stop you mentally by keeping you in constant confusion. And here's the key: truth always clarifies, lies always confuse. So when a family member leaves you constantly in conflict, constantly unsure, constantly doubting yourself or others, you must ask, what spirit are they operating under? Because people who love you don't feed confusion. They bring peace, they bring clarity, they bring stability. A witch in disguise will do the opposite. They keep you unstable because an unstable person is easier to control. That's why you can't afford to ignore patterns of division. Every time you see confusion swirling around the same person, stop overlooking it. Stop excusing it. Because a witch doesn't reveal themselves through what they claim, they reveal themselves through the storms they leave behind. And if the storm keeps circling the same family member, you've already identified where the witch is hiding. And this is where you have to be brutally honest with yourself, which is, don't waste their energy on what is empty, on what carries no weight, on what poses no threat. They target the valuable, they target the chosen, they target the one in the family who carries light, who carries potential, who carries purpose. If you've ever wondered, why me? Why do I always feel attacked? Why does it seem like I'm the one carrying the heaviest battles? It's because there is something inside of you worth fighting over. They see it even if you don't. They sense the greatness, the calling, the future impact, and instead of celebrating it, they make it their mission to suppress it. You are not attacked because you are weak. You are attacked because you are strong. You are not resisted because you have nothing. You are resisted because you carry everything. That's the truth people miss. Witches don't invest energy in people who are going nowhere. They focus on the one whose rise would shift the entire family line, the one whose success would break generational curses, the one whose voice would carry influence beyond the walls of the home. That's why it feels like you can't catch a break, why the pressure never seems to stop, why you are constantly targeted. It's not bad luck. It's because you're marked by destiny, and that's exactly why you cannot fold under the weight. Because if you give in to their attacks, if you allow their envy, their gossip, their manipulation to silence you, then they've won. They've achieved what they set out to do: keep you small, keep you stuck, keep you doubting yourself. But the fact that you feel the resistance is proof that you're valuable, proof that you're carrying something powerful enough to be worth stopping. So instead of asking, why me? Start asking, what is it they see in me that I haven't seen in myself? Because sometimes your enemies identify your worth before you do. Sometimes the witches in your family recognize your destiny long before you step into it, and that's why they fight you so hard. They are terrified of the day you wake up and realize the power you've been carrying all along. Understand this: your value doesn't decrease just because they refuse to acknowledge it. In fact, their attacks confirm it, their jealousy proves it, their resistance validates it, because no one spends energy cursing what has no impact. The heavier the battle, the greater the treasure inside you. And once you accept that, you stop seeing yourself as a victim of witchcraft and start seeing yourself as a target because of your greatness. And that shift changes everything, so pay attention. If you feel targeted, if you feel singled out, if you feel like you're always the one carrying the fight, it's because you're worth it. You are carrying something too powerful to go unnoticed, and the witch hiding in your family knows it. They've seen it, they fear it, and their only mission is to stop you before you realize it for yourself. So in the end, it comes down to this: you don't need to live in fear, you need to live in awareness. Witches hide in plain sight, but they can't hide their patterns. They can't hide their envy, their manipulation, their division, or the confusion they constantly stir. And most importantly, they can't hide the fact that they always target the strongest among you, the one with the most light. That means if you've been under attack, if you've been feeling the weight, it's not because you're cursed, it's because you're chosen. Your job is not to shrink back, not to second, guess yourself, not to let their poison dictate your path. Your job is to protect your spirit, sharpen your discernment, and rise above the traps, because the greatest way to defeat a witch hiding in your family is to become unshakable in who you are. Once you know your value, their weapons lose power. Once you walk in clarity, their confusion no longer works. And once you refuse to be divided, their influence collapses. Remember, darkness only wins when you forget the light you carry. And you, even in the middle of family battles, even with people plotting behind your back, still carry the power to rise, to lead, and to break through. The witch's greatest fear is not that you'll expose them, it's that you'll step fully into the destiny they've been trying to keep you from all along.